Folks, we call this the universal tree stand bow holder because it fits all tree stands and will hold all bows. It comes with a top plate and a bottom plate. You just put 2 screws to the inside, 2 screws to the outside, and tighten them down on the top part of your stand, not on the floor. The S-hook is tightened down by these 3 screws here. It's just a compression fitting. You tighten these 3 screws first until you cannot turn this S-hook with your hand. Then you put it on the top part of your stand and clamp it down. Now all you got to do is put your bow in it, and you need to lean it forward. The further forward it is, the more it's pushing down here and lifting up here. And it's a counterbalance. At this position, if you bump your bow, it's going to stay. And yet, tilt it back just 1 inch and it comes right out. Now you can adjust this to any bow, long bow, recurve, or compound, just simply by turning it like this. Folks, for the recurve, instead of having this parallel like this, your recurve limb's a little bit straighter, so you need just to push it forward like this. Get the arrow pointed down towards the deer, and now your bow will stay there nice and secure. When the deer does come in, your arrow's already nocked. All you need to do is tilt it back, and now you're ready to shoot. Folks, everybody I know that has a crossbow seems to want to admit that they are definitely heavier than a compound bow, and yet hardly anybody ever uses a crossbow holder. Here we're using the third hand tree stand bow holder as a crossbow holder. As you can see, if I bump the bow, it's staying here, and it's pointed down towards the deer. When the deer does come in, all I need to do is tilt the bow back, slide it out, and I'm ready to shoot. It's got the bow secure, but pointed down towards the ground, so there's very little movement when the deer comes in. Folks, I used to leave my bow on the ground along with my backpack or whatever when I was using a climbing tree stand because, hey, let's face it, tree stands were really hard back in the old days of Baker and stands like that, and people were getting hurt climbing trees. One of the problems they were having is that since they leave their bow on the ground, they're climbing the trees so fast because you got to get up there, get your tree stand locked in, get your seat belt on, get your bow up before the deer gets there. Going so fast that, heck, I'm out of breath just talking about it. About 5 years ago, I had some little Amish boys show me something, and tell you what, it works great. Instead of leaving the bow on the ground and making it a race to the top of the tree, how about taking your bow with you? If you use the third hand tree stand bow holder, you can put your bow in backwards like this, tilt it back towards the tree stand like this, and now you can climb with your bow and a bow holder. You just take 1 step, it comes right on up with you. Take your seat belt, move it on up, and take you another step. It's a lot quicker or quieter this way, and if a deer does happen to come in on you while you're climbing, it's not a big deal. You've got your bow with you. All you need to do is cinch your straps down, which will keep your 2 stands locked together if you happen to be fortunate enough to own an equalizer tree stand. They're one of the few companies that has this feature. Now the 2 tree stands are locked together. Take your seat belt, put it up at the height above you like this, and cinch it on down. You can still see the deer's coming in. He might be at 50 or 60 yards out, but it's no big deal. You got your bow with you. Take your arrow out. Get in a position to shoot. Knock your arrow and wait. When the deer finally does get to you, and if you're going quietly, you will hear deer coming through the woods as you're climbing. Anyway, once the deer gets to you, just take your time, pick a spot, and let the air out. You can watch him drop. Folks, when it's time to come down, say 10 o'clock in the morning, instead of letting your bow down with the rope first and then come down and have a deer come in on you while you're climbing down, or maybe 10 minutes before dark in the evening when you're climbing down, just put your arrow back into your quiver, put your bow back into your bow holder, tilt it back towards the tree stand, and come on down. Take 1 step at a time and keep listening as you're going, because deer, they hear this scratching on this bark that I'm making right now. Deer are curious. They're going to want to see who's in their backyard. Of course, if your bow's on the ground, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. Now come on down a couple steps. It's a little bit quieter this way too, and You're taking your time. It keeps you from having any falls, and if you do have a fall, your fall restraint system's got you. Let's say you get halfway down the tree and all of a sudden the deer comes in on you. Well, all you do now is put your seat belt back up, fasten it down, grab your bow. Here comes your deer again, down the same trail. I think it's the deer from last night's twin brother. He comes in, he gets to relatively the same spot, and let's see if I can let the air out of him too. Well folks, looks like I left the air out of that one too. Of course, these are just 3D targets, but in real life, the real thing can be the same way. You let the air out and watch them drop. And now as you can see, we're coming back down the tree. It's nice and quiet. I can take my time. I'm not getting all hot, even though it is 80 degrees today. I'm not getting all hot and sweaty racing up and down a tree. I gotta let these brackets loose. And then come on back down. One step at a time. It's nice and easy. It's quiet. And by the way, it'd be hard to lose your bow out of this one. When using the third hand universal tree stand bow holder on a lock-on stand, I like to put the bow holder on the seat. As you can see here, this is a 45-degree angle, just a tube that's onto the seat, or this tube back here. Either one would hold the bow because you've got a top plate and a bottom plate that clamps it, as well as a S-hook that turns. Now in this particular one, I'm using High Country's new Iron Mace parallel limb bow. In addition to being a quick and quiet bow, it works great in our bow holder. All you do, since the limbs are parallel, you need to push the bow forward using the weight of the bow to change the angle of your bow holder. Now with the bow leaning forward, if I accidentally bump the bow, it's staying there. Yeah, I did knock the arrow off, but the bow stays there. When the deer comes in, all I need to do now is just slightly move it back an inch. It's nice and quiet, and it comes out off the side. If you're going to be using a recurve bow and the bow holder and it's already been used for a parallel limb, the bow holder's way too far forward. So the easiest thing to do is to turn your bow over, stick it in here, and pull it back like this. Once you got it back far enough, turn the bow back forward like that. It's already pointed down towards the ground. It's holding well. Put your bow or your arrow in, knock it, lay back, sit back and relax. So you can see here, even though long bows and recurves aren't heavy, they do get cumbersome in a tree stand. Now you're free to move about the tree stand and do whatever you like, and it keeps you from worrying about kicking your bow off the floor because you have it upside down underneath the seat, a place that you normally wouldn't be using anyway. The deer does come in, tilt the bow back, and get ready to shoot. Folks, now I'm going to show you how we use the bow holder on a ladder stand. Now since the holder clamps on and rotates, you can mount it on a flat, you can mount it on an upright, you can mount it on a 45, heck, you can even put it back here if you want. It's wherever it suits you the best. The idea though is to get the bow holder up next to you so it's pointed downward towards the deer, and that way when the deer comes in, all you need to do is tilt the bow back, slide it out, and now you're ready to shoot. Folks, as you can see, this bow holder will hold all bows on all tree stands. Long bows, recurves, compounds, crossbows, lock-ons, it doesn't matter. Ask your local dealer. You can pick one up for less than 20 bucks.